The Zen approach has to do with understanding that it is possible for you to experience your awareness, to experience awareness in such a way that the way your being is changing. And one of the things that is less obvious to us about stress is that there are more causes of stress that are a function of the way you're being than there are causes of stress outside of yourself. So when you practice meditation, when you practice meditation, especially if you do it consistently over time, you start to become more aware of your habits, right? You start to become aware of your habitual ways of thinking, your habitual ways of reacting, right? And so you start to see for yourself that if I'm seeing things happen, if I see what happens in a certain way, if I think about it in a certain way, if I'm being, for example, if I'm being very judgmental, right? If I'm being very reactive, right? If I think it should be different than it is, and therefore I'm in conflict with it, right? I'm not flowing. Then life is stressful. You know, for some people, everything in life is stressful, right? Which is evidence for the idea that the stress is a function of who they are, not of what's happening. And for other people, most things aren't stressful. So the possibility of being a lot more relaxed and a lot less stressed and a lot more available, a lot more present to things as they are, is available if you practice meditation. Because if you practice meditation, you're learning to become aware of your conditioning, right? Most people walking around are not aware of their conditioning, right? It doesn't look like conditioning, it looks like the way it is. An unaware person would see life with conditioning and not know they're seeing life with conditioning. And so in meditation, we talk about waking up, we talk about gradually seeing your conditioning, seeing the way you are in terms of the kind of person you are, the kind of personality that you have, the way that your mind works, the way you think, your habits. You know, all of this starts to become obvious because when you shine the light of awareness on something, you can see it more clearly. You can see more of what's there than you could see before you learned how to shine the light of awareness on what's going on around you. See, here's the thing. Here's the question. And I've said this several times different ways. If it's possible for you to wake up, if it's possible for you to see what you haven't been seeing, to see what you've been blind to, and if it's possible upon seeing that to realize that there is a way to be in the world, there's a way to be related to your physical body, there's a way to be related to your diet, there's a way to be related to exercise, there's a way to be related to your relationships to other people. If you come to see and understand that there is a way to live your life that offers you much greater possibility, that offers you the opportunity to experience much more well-being and satisfaction and happiness and effectiveness in the way you're living your life, skillfulness in the way you're living your life. If it's possible for you to see that, and it is possible for you to see that, then the question is, what explains the fact that you're not acting that way, that you're not actually following what you know works? This is a good question to ask yourself, don't you think? Okay? If you know, for example, that being angry and getting into angry interactions with other people is not a good idea, right? But you keep doing it, what's happening? What explains that? this is a good thing for you to deal with yourself. You know, if it's possible for you to be happy, if it's possible for you to get along well in life and to be effective in the way that you're living your life, then what explains that that's not the case? What explains that you're not doing what you can learn to do and know to do to have life work? This is the kind of thing that you get into in meditation, in the sense that you start to see for yourself what's actually happening that leaves you in this limited way of being, that leaves you in being less than effective in the way that you're living your life. You start to see that more clearly through the practice of meditation, and it starts to become more possible for you to be who you really are. And that's not something that is a belief. That's not something that is happening because of your conditioning or something you learn. That's something that happens because it's natural for you to be who you are. And that natural being begins to express itself when you practice meditation, right? Because when you practice meditation, you're practicing changing your brain. You're practicing seeing things as they are, in the sense that one of the most obvious things that you can see for what it is thinking. You know, if you're seeing that a thought is just a thought, it's not a truth, it's not a fact, right? That can be seen by shining the light on it when you're sitting in meditation and noticing that the voice in your head isn't you. That's there to see. Right? That's not a belief. That's not conditioning. That's there to see. And if you do see it, it's obvious that the voice in your head isn't you. It's obvious that you have to look to see what the voice says to know what you thought was you thinking. Right? You can't predict what the voice in your head is going to say next. So it's about waking up and seeing things as they are, and the more clear you are about the way it is, the more effective you can be in the way you live your life. That your perception of things has it be that what you see is not consistent with the way it is, and you're trying to get your life to work with the way you're seeing it, when the way you're seeing it is not the way it is. Does this make any sense? You're trying to get something to work based on your understanding of life and what you see to be so about life, and what you understand and what you see to be so about life is not accurate. It's not true. And so your efforts are futile. Your efforts, you keep failing at things because of the fact that you're not awake. So it really comes down to the idea that you have to get clear that through the practice of meditation, you're working directly on changing your brain, and you're working directly on getting free to see outside of the conditioning. Once you see the conditioning, you can see outside of the conditioning. Right? They have said in the last decade, a lot of people have talked about thinking out of the box, right? Thinking out of the box. That's a very insidious suggestion. It's a very insidious suggestion. And although the intention is well-meaning, the problem with thinking outside of the box is that thinking is the box. Right? So if you're going to try and think outside of the box, you're missing the point, because thinking is the box. So maybe that'll be the next thing that people become aware of. I don't know. So one of the things that these practices and teachings is really pointing to and talking about is the possibility of you taking 100% responsibility for your life, 100% responsibility for your body, 100% responsibility for your emotions, 100% responsibility for your thoughts. You don't get to blame it on anybody else now. You know, you get to take responsibility. And when you take responsibility for these things, you're actually aligning yourself with the truth, right? Because the truth is, it's not what's happening that is the source of your experience. It's your relationship to what's happening that is the source of your experience. So this is what there is to see. And it doesn't work to just learn about it and believe it. I can testify to that firsthand, right? Because one of the things that was really a source of tremendous frustration for me in my life was that very early on in my life, I came across these teachings and practices. You know, I used to hang out at a Kundalini Yoga ashram. I used to go hang out with these people and learned about meditation, practiced martial arts, read the books by all of the teachers that were available in those days, like Alan Watts. A bunch of different things were available in those days. And the thing about it was that I was learning a lot about the truth, and so I knew about the truth, but the thing was that as much as I knew about the truth, I was still crazy. I was still behaving crazy. I still had bad habit patterns. I was still not seeming to be able to get the benefit that I was told that was available out of these teachings and practices. And it took me a while to understand that that was because I didn't have a direct experience of it. I just had beliefs about it. And that's not going to change your habits. That's not going to change the way your brain works. The only thing that's going to change those things is the practice of sitting still and paying attention and being aware. And when I did start to do that, then things started to change in the way that I wanted them to change. You have to understand something. People talk about changing like changing is the way to get, people talk about changing like changing is the way to get things to work, right? If you're doing something that's not working, change it, right? So that people focus on changing things. But that's a misunderstanding. You know, change is always happening. Change is a constant. Change is always happening. So it's not about changing things. Changing things isn't the way to have things work. Right? Change is a constant. It's always happening. But by being aware, the way it changes, changes. Do you follow this? By being aware, the way it changes, changes, right? By being aware that a thought is just a thought, right? Change is a constant, it's always happening. But now, by being aware that a thought is just a thought, the way it changes is that thoughts no longer occur to you to be true or to be facts. So things are always changing, but now, because of the awareness, it changed consistent with my intention. It changed in alignment with my awareness instead of just changing the way it normally does, right? Because the way it normally changes left somebody to make a statement that the more it changes, the more it stays the same, right? So we're not talking about that kind of change. The more it changes, the more it stays the same, right? Because just changing the form of something is not changing the essence of it, you know? You can change where you live, but that's not going to make much of a difference given the fact that you'll be there. And you're the problem, not where you live, right? But if you become more aware, then what changes starts to be how you are and who you are instead of where you are. Do you follow that? By being aware, you see and realize for yourself that changing where you live, changing who your partner is, right? Changing a lot of those variables, right, is not in the end going to make much of a difference. Why? Because you'll be there to turn it to shit. Right? Right? But what will make a difference is through your awareness of what's happening and your intention to be happy and skillful and awake, that what changes is now changing who you are and how you are instead of where you are. And that change can make a difference. But this practice and these teachings are not about what you like. They're about what works. So, I mean, obviously, if you understand that if you practice meditation for 20 minutes a day without fail, that over time, that will start to change the way things occur to you, start to change the way you see things. I want to make a distinction here between the idea of what you can do and what will happen naturally if you just practice, right? Because you're not doing it. You're not doing it. It's a natural expression of the truth, a natural expression of who you are that's happening. It's not that you're doing it. And so if you do it over time, that's why, that's why if you have to understand it. See, one of the reasons that most people can't meditate is because you've been conditioned to expect results right away, right? You've been conditioned to expect results right away, right? And so people say, oh, well, I'm going to try meditation. And then they sit and meditate. They've read about it. They've heard about what's possible. And so they sit and meditate. And after they meditate for 10 minutes, they get up and they're not experiencing bliss. So they say, this doesn't work. Right? This doesn't work. Doesn't work. And then it's even worse than saying this doesn't work. They say, I can't do this. So what you do is you invalidate yourself. It's worse than this doesn't work. I don't work. I can't do this. I can't stop my mind from thinking these thoughts, which has nothing to do with meditation. So one of the things that's important if you're going to be trained to meditate is to have a teacher so that you don't go astray and believe things like you have to stop your thinking in order to be able to meditate. If you have a teacher will tell you, no, that has nothing to do with meditation. And so you don't have to waste your time trying to stop thinking. It's amazing how pervasive it is that people believe that meditation is about stopping thinking. And the way you deal with thinking with meditation is what you're practicing is to let go of thinking, not stop it. Let go of it. Be aware of thinking and let go of it so that the thoughts come and they go instead of they come and you get stuck with them. That's not letting go of thinking. That's an attachment to thought, right? And so part of the practice is letting go of thinking, and that may be something that you have to distinguish and recognize as you're practicing. That if you're practicing and a thought arises and it captures your attention, and that thought takes you for a ride, right? And you're gone for however period of time because you're on the trajectory of that thought, right? To recognize that as you're meditating and not make it wrong that it happened, but see it for what it is. Notice that it did happen, right? And then have the intention to be aware in such a way that when a thought arises, you see that it's a thought and you don't get attached to it. You allow the thought to pass. This is what we want. We want to cultivate our ability to be the awareness that allows everything to happen the way it does and lets it happen the way it does. And so one of the things that you discover directly if you practice meditation is there's no such thing as control. It's not that control is good or bad or it works or it doesn't work. There's no such thing as control. This would be a good thing to notice, I think, right? Because if you don't notice it, you're going to spend a lot of time and energy trying to control things that you're not controlling. There is no such thing as control.
Sometimes it seems like
I know. That's the casino effect. Right? You know what I mean by that? That's the casino effect. Every once in a while something works and then you believe that it's true. Every once in a while, if you go to the casino, you'll win, and then you believe it's possible to hit the jackpot. But it's possible to see things as they actually are. And it's possible to be related to life in a way that works. One of the ways that you are relating to life in a way that works is when you understand that life is your teacher. Life is your teacher. Life is the way life is, right? It's not going to change for you. You're going to change for it if life is going to work. You're going to change for it. And the way you change for it is to let yourself discover that the awareness that you are is already in relationship to the way life is. The awareness that you are is already in relationship to the way life is. Say, that the awareness that you are is already flowing with life the way life is. Why? Because the awareness that you are is life. The awareness that you are is life. The idea that you're separate from that and you're different from that is an illusion. That's not true. So there are certain things that have to occur in order for this process to happen. And one of those things is you've got to see, you've got to be willing to be open-minded and receptive, right? So that you can see things as they are. Well, that would seem to make sense, right? You have to be willing to be open-minded and receptive to see things as they are, right? And then having seen things as they are, you have to be motivated, right, to do the practice so that you can let go of, right, let go of your identifying with with things that are not the way things are. And meditation will get that job done. See what I'm saying? Meditation will get that job done. You will meditate. If you meditate consistently over time, you will notice the difference it makes, because you will notice that you're not relating to thinking the way you were. You're not relating to life the way you were. You're not seeing things the way you were seeing them before. And the way you're relating to it now and the way you're seeing it now is a lot more satisfying, a lot more effective, a lot more workable.